Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Furlong, and today we're talking ossification. Ossification is just a fancy name for saying bone formation, or how do our bones form. We'll look at two types of ossification in this video. The first is called intramembranous ossification. This takes place in thin bones, particularly up those here in the skull. This is a very important process. Sometimes things do go wrong. Here we see the skeleton, famous skeleton of John Merrick, otherwise known as the Elephant Man. And you can see that he's got what looks like these growths on his skull. Some parts of the bone form normally, other parts just continue to grow. Here is a skeleton of a normal baby. If you look closely, you can see where the bone tissue is, and in certain areas, like right up here at the top of the skull, where it's kind of a yellowish, that's cartilage. So notice you see this cartilage in places like the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, the knees, down in the ankles. These are areas that have not fully formed yet. Now this is for a particular reason. The baby is in the uterus, it's all curled up. In order for the baby to be born and make its way through the birth canal, those skull bones are going to kind of compress together just a little bit to be able to get the head out. And you may have heard of babies having a soft spot. They have a couple of them. These are called fontanelles. And that is areas where there's connective tissue there, but the bone hasn't fully formed yet. In most types of bones, we see what's called endochondral ossification. So this starts out, before there's bone, there's going to be cartilage in place, and this is specifically hyaline cartilage. Osteoblasts come in, and they will break down that cartilage. Once the osteoblasts have come in, then spongy bone is going to start to be made. And we see new bone tissue forming around what's called the primary ossification center. Now this is going to take place in the diaphysis, or the shaft of the long bone. On the epiphyses, on the ends of the long bones, the secondary ossification center will appear, and new bone is going to continue to grow. Eventually these two areas are going to meet, and we see what's called the epiphyseal plate. This is also known as the growth plate. If you've ever broken a bone, especially close to a joint, and you had to get an x-ray, they look to see, is there a break at that epiphyseal plate? If so, what that could mean is that when we stop growing, the epiphyseal plate will seal shut, and then our bone stops growing. If we break that epiphyseal plate, that could cause the plate to seal up sooner. And if this isn't, say, in your leg, that could cause one leg to be a little bit longer than another leg because they stop growing at different times. Now, yes, we all have one leg slightly larger than another one, but this might be a little bit more inconvenient for us. So here we see this process where bone starts off in cartilage. In the diaphysis, we get the primary ossification center appearing. Bone continues to grow outwards, and then in the epiphyses, we can see here, we get the secondary ossification centers occurring, and that causes bone growth. And then where the two areas meet, we have the epiphyseal plates, or the growth plates, and eventually when the bone stops growing, then it will seal shut. Here we see a picture of a fetus, and one of the things that can be done is when you look and see those dark red areas, that is showing where bone tissue is, and the lighter color, that is still showing cartilage. In an ultrasound, for instance, they can measure, for instance, how big the femur is, the humerus. They can look at the head, and they can get an estimate as to how old that fetus is, and from that they can then determine what the due date is going to be. That's just a real quick look at how bones are formed in ossification. In another video, we're going to be taking a look at how our bones grow, and I'll see you in class.